The origins of the Waffen-SS can be traced back to the selection of a group of 120 SS men on March 17. (1933) by Sepp Dietrich to form the Sonderkommando Berlin. The formation was given the title Leibstandard Adolf Hitler. On April 13, 1934, by order of Himmler, the regiment became known as the Leibstandard SS Adolf Hitler. In September 1934, Hitler authorized the formation of the paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party. And approved the formation of the SSVT, a special service troop under Hitler's overall command. The SSVT had to depend on the German army for its supply of weapons and military training. And its local draft boards responsible for assigning conscripts to the different branches of the Wehrmacht to meet quotas set by the German High Command. The SS was given the lowest priority for recruits, even with the difficulties presented by the quota system. Heinrich Himmler formed two new SS regiments, the SS Germania and SS Deutschland, which together with the Leibstandard and a communications unit made up the SSVT. At the same time, Himmler established two SS officer training camps that, under the direction of former Lieutenant General Paul Hauser, prepared future SS leaders. In addition to military training, the courses aim to instill a proper ideological worldview, with anti-Semitism being the main tenet. Instructors such as Matthias Klein-Heisterkamp, or future war criminals, such as Franz McGill of the notorious SS Cavalry Brigade, were of questionable competence. Hitler expounded on the attitude he wanted during a talk in the Wolf's Lair. "I have 6 divisions of SS composed of men absolutely indifferent in matters of religion. It doesn't prevent them from going to their deaths with serenity in their souls." On August 17, 1938, Hitler declared that the SSVT would have a role in domestic as well as foreign affairs. Which transformed this growing armed force into the rival that the army had feared. He decreed that service in the SSVT qualified to fulfill military service obligations, although service in the SS Totenkopfverband would not. Some units of the SSTV would, in the case of war, be used as reserves for the SSVT. Which did not have its own reserves. For all its training, the SSVT was untested in combat. In 1938, a battalion of the Leibstandard was chosen to accompany the army troops in occupying Austria during the Anschluss, and the 3 regiments of the SSVT participated in the occupation of the Sudetenland that same year in October. In both actions no resistance was met. In August 1939, Hitler placed the Leibstandard and the SSVT under the operational control of the Army High Command. In spite of the swift military victory over Poland in September 1939, the regular army felt that the performance of the SSVT left much to be desired. Its units took unnecessary risks and had a higher casualty rate than the army. They also stated that the SSVT was poorly trained and its officers unsuitable for combat command. And was improperly equipped by the army to carry out its objectives. Himmler insisted that the SSVT should be allowed to fight in its own formations under its own commanders, while the OKW tried to have the SSVT disbanded altogether. Hitler was unwilling to upset either the army or Himmler, and chose a third path. He ordered that the SSVT form its own divisions, but that the divisions would be under the OKW. In October 1939, the Deutschland, Germania, and der Führer regiments were reorganized into the SS Verfügungsdivision. The Leibstandard remained independent and was increased in strength to a reinforced motorized regiment. Hitler authorized the creation of 2 new divisions. The SS Totenkopf Division, formed from militarized Standarten of the SS Totenkopfverband, and the Polizei Division, formed from members of the National Police Force. Almost overnight, the force that the OKW had tried to disband had increased from 18,000 to over 100,000 men. Hitler next authorized the creation of 4 motorized artillery battalions in March 1940. Hitler next authorized the creation of 4 motorized artillery battalions in March 1940, one for each division, and the Leibstandard. The OKW was supposed to supply these new battalions with artillery. But was reluctant to hand over guns from its own arsenal. The weapons arrived only slowly, and, by the time of the Battle of France, only the Leibstandard battalion was up to strength. The three SS divisions and the Leibstandard spent the winter of 1939 and the spring of 1940 training and preparing for the coming war in the West. In May, they moved to the front. And the Leibstandard was attached to the Army's 227th Infantry Division. The Der Führer Regiment was detached from the SSVT Division and attached to the 207th Infantry Division. The SS Totenkopf and Polizei divisions were held in reserve. Hitler expressed his pleasure with the performance of the Leibstandard in the Netherlands and France, telling them, "Henceforth it will be an honor for you, who bear my name, to lead every German attack." He used the term Waffen-SS when describing the units of the LSSAH and SSVT that took part. By June 1940, Danish and Norwegian volunteers had formed the SS Regiment Nordland, with Dutch and Flemish volunteers forming the SS Regiment Westland. The two regiments, together with Germania, formed the SS Division Viking. By the spring of 1941, a major Italian counterattack against Greek forces failed. And Germany came to the aid of its ally. Operation Merida began on April 6, 1941. With German troops invading Greece through Bulgaria and Yugoslavia in an effort to secure its southern flank. Reich was ordered to leave France and head for Romania, and the Leibstandard was ordered to Bulgaria. Into the mountains, and by April 9th had reached Prilep in Yugoslavia, 30 miles from the Greek border. Further north, the Reich Division, with the 41st Panzer Corps, crossed the Romanian border and advanced on Belgrade, the Yugoslav capital. Fritz Klingenberg, a company commander in the Reich, led his men into Belgrade. Where a small group in the vanguard accepted the surrender of the city on April 13th. A few days later, the Royal Yugoslav Army surrendered. The Leibstandard had now crossed into Greece, and on April 10th engaged the 6th Australian Division in the Battle of the Klidi Pass. For 48 hours they fought for control of the heights, often engaging in hand-to-hand combat, eventually gaining control with the capture of Height 997. This victory gained praise from the OKW. In the order of the day they were commended for their unshakable offensive spirit and told that the present victory signifies for the Leibstandard a new and imperishable page of honor in its history. The Leibstandard continued the advance on May 13th. When the reconnaissance battalion under the command of Kurt Meyer came under heavy fire from the Greek army defending the Klajura Pass, they broke through the defenders and captured 1,000 prisoners of war at the cost of only 6 dead and 9 wounded. The next day, Meyer captured Kastoria and took another 11,000 prisoners of war. By May 20th, the Leibstandard had cut off the retreating Greek army at Metsovo and accepted the surrender of the Greek Epirus Macedonian army. The Leibstandard was nominally redesignated as a full motorized division. although few additional elements had been added by the start of the Soviet campaign, and the division remained effectively a reinforced brigade. On April 20th, the commander of Greek forces in Albania, Lieutenant General Georgios Salakogla, accepted the hopelessness of the situation and offered to surrender his army, which then consisted of 14 divisions. Papagos condemned Salakogla's decision to capitulate, although Lieutenant General Ioannis Pitsikas and Major General Georgios Bakis had warned him a week earlier that morale in the Epirus army was wearing thin, and combat stress and exhaustion had resulted in officers taking the decision to put deserters before firing squads. On strict orders from Hitler, negotiations were kept secret from the Italians and the surrender was accepted. Outraged by this decision, Mussolini ordered counterattacks against the Greek forces, which were repulsed, but at some cost to the defenders. The Luftwaffe intervened in the renewed fighting, and Ioannina was practically destroyed by Stukas. Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union, started on June 22, 1941. And all the Waffen-SS formations participated, including the Reich Division, which was formally renamed to Das Reich by the fall of 1941. SS Division Nord, which was in northern Finland. Took part in Operation Arctic Fox with the Finnish army and fought at the Battle of Salla, where against strong Soviet forces they suffered 300 killed and 400 wounded in the first 2 days of the invasion. Thick forests and heavy smoke from forest fires disoriented the troops, and the division's units completely fell apart. By the end of 1941, Nord had suffered severe casualties. Over the winter of 1941 to 42, it received replacements from the general pool of Waffen-SS recruits. Who were supposedly younger and better trained than the SS men of the original formation, which had been drawn largely from Totenkopfstandardten of Nazi concentration camp guards. The rest of the Waffen-SS divisions and brigades fared better. The Totenkopf and Polizei divisions were attached to Army Group North, with the mission to advance through the Baltic states and on to Leningrad. The Das Reich Division was with Army Group Center and headed towards Moscow. The Leibstandard and Viking divisions were with Army Group South, heading for Ukraine and the city of Kiev. The invasion of the Soviet Union proceeded well at first. but the cost to the Waffen-SS was extreme. By late October, the Leibstandard was at half strength due to enemy action and dysentery that swept through the ranks. Das Reich lost 60% of its strength and was still to take part in the Battle of Moscow. The unit was later decimated in the following Soviet offensive. The Der Führer regiment was reduced to 35 men out of the 2,000 that had started the campaign in June. Altogether, the Waffen-SS had suffered 43,000 casualties.